This is an incredibly difficult thing to do. Trying to get you some focus. That hose is the hose that's running to a spin-in adapter to the actual threaded bore in the case. You may be able to see it. Let's see what's the better light. If you look, you can see the brass adapter into the rubber hose into the threaded adapter that's threading into the crankcase. Unbelievably hard thing to do. And to get super creative, because the body of the radiator shroud takes a centerline approach to that threaded bore completely out of the picture. So even with a cardan joint, I'm surprised I got the old one off. The cardan joint wouldn't even make this connection. So what I did is I dreaded taking the radiator off, because the radiator off means draining the radiator. Put the connection in and putting the radiator back on and filling it up, because I wasn't going to run the bike without having a water jacket on it. And so the secret to this little endeavor was remove the top bolt that goes through that rubber isolator that fastens to the flange on the radiator housing, and that goes into the frame. And similarly, there's one down below. I may not be able to pick it up very well. 10mm acorn nuts. So I withdrew those and I put my trusty Pittsburgh pry bar on some points, on the hard points on the frame, and I started adding leverage to move the entire carriage assembly of the radiator assembly forward. And that gave me a little bit of room, but it did not give me the room in the plane that I needed, which was I needed a centerline approach. So I did a little bit more prying with the pry bar, and I put a 12mm socket in between the bracket of the radiator fan assembly and rested on this hard point, and that lifted the radiator enough to take that bulge out of the way, and I was able to get a more straighter attack on the I had the adapter held in a ratchet and extension and spun it in, and then what you're seeing is the end of the hose of the pressure gauge. You have to thread it in, and it's sort of lame because the hose length is 4 feet long, and you're basically trying to screw a thread in with this piece of rope that has to turn with it. Not a real great experience. And then you have to thread it back into the pressure gauge. I got the $50 gauge set, so there's no quick adjusters, you know, snap it on and snap it off. And I was lucky enough to find in the Pittsburgh oil pressure gauge kit a 10mm adapter, because I had established a 10mm thread size of that bore for the pressure gauge. Now here's my other conundrum. The pressure gauges that are listed by part number for this bike have undergone an engineering supercision. So they abandoned the original part number and gave it a new part number. Now those changes usually happen because there is some sort of geometric difference in the parts, but it also happens when they change a part supplier. And some of my research, pretty deep research, is indicating that the sensor that I pulled off, I've got it in the living room, there's indications in my research that the sensor is a closed, normally closed sensor. So when oil pressure hits the sensor face, it pushes into the sensor bore and makes an electrical circuit. And that's what brings on the oil pressure indication, low pressure light. And the two items that are being sold, one looks exactly like mine as far as color. orange conic section holding a threaded nipple with a brass body that's 24 millimeter socket size. And the other one that's sold under the same part number has got a black conic section because on the end of the conic section there's a threaded bore. And this is my next project of prestidigitation. That threaded bore has a screw that goes through that electrical eyelet into the center of the bore, and it takes the signal from the pressure transducer and brings it over to that conductor right here, which goes into the main wiring harness. And there's two paths for this sensor. One wire goes directly to the light and the gauge pack, and the other wire goes directly to the fuse center up here, where its power is derived from. Now, the big question of the age is, and I'm trying to get more information out of the Netherlands, the way I frame my questions. I try to depose them without them realizing it. Which of these two items that are sold under the part number that are visibly different in color, body, and potting material to hold the vice nipple, are those both normally closed? Are they both normally open? Now, I can ask the question to Partzilla. I'll bet you I'll get an answer, but I guess I wouldn't be real certain about the answer. I'd be more certain about the answer with the people from the Netherlands. So, like, I'm ready to put a sensor back on the bike, but now the big question is which one to buy, because the bike is wired for what all my history and archive search says is a normally closed sensor. So what happens if you put a normally open sensor? I don't think the wiring will work. So I'm probably a couple of days from finding out what I can from Netherlands. I much more take the gamble of risk with the Netherlands, even though their prices are, $45 higher, and then you got Euro tax and tariff and shipping, and the lead time, I would guess, might be 2 weeks, as opposed to Partzilla, which probably have it here in a couple of days. The one good thing is, if I bought each one from Partzilla and one didn't work and I used the other one, I didn't disassemble the radiator assembly enough to stop me from running the bike. That's why I was praying to God, if there is one, to allow me to figure out a way to do it keeping the radiator in situ, which luckily I've done. So that's where we are. I thought I'd give you an update. I'll share with you what I learned from the Netherlands, and I also learned a lot of this from the CX500 forum, just by searching pressure switch and stuff like that, and you'll see me with posts in there as well. Holy shit, this was just one son of a bitch to do. At least I'm probably a little bit easier to put it on and take it off now that I've made myself a little bit of headway clearance. So that's the update for now, and I haven't even begun working on the petcock issue because I wanted to make sure that you got a video of the bike pumping oil pressure to prove that the sensor was bad. And then once I was doing that, I was going to mount the tank and then figure out how to do all this into something more compact and use the better petcock valve that I got from Partzilla. It's bigger. You can get a bigger purchase on it as opposed to these little miniature sons of bitches. I'm giving myself a big yahoo right now, and going to reward myself with half of my remaining medical cigarette, and it's just, you can't fucking believe this. I wonder how much a Honda mechanic would charge for this. Gotta get creative. Take care, bro. Bye-bye.